Welcome to Being Human. This week's guest, I'm delighted to say, is Luke Kyte, Head of Operations for Reddico. Now, Luke, you contacted me on LinkedIn. It sounded like you were interested in the podcast. I read a bit more about the Reddico story and was really captured by this idea of, another company out there attempting to create a culture without managers. And as I understand it, you're the head of the cultural revolution for Reddico, a marketing agency here in the UK. Should we kind of go back to the genesis of you joining Reddico and kicking off this mission?
Yeah, sure. So first of all, thank you for having me on, Richard. It's great to be part of this. And it's a great opportunity to kind of explain what we've been doing as a company and the cultural place that we've come to now. So going right back to the beginning, I joined Reddico when there were sort of 3 or 4 people, and we've kind of had natural progression, I suppose, from a client side. We deliver great work, building up a really healthy sort of portfolio of really big clients around the UK. So from a work side, everything was going really well. We were doing all the kind of natural things that you would do to try and instill culture, which was get a table tennis table, have like a beer fridge, go for nights out, all that kind of stuff that everyone looks at culture initially and goes, oh, that's great, that's going really, really well. It then got to a point where we suddenly realized that actually things maybe weren't as great as they seemed. So we were doing things such as an NPS, internal NPS score. And we were having out of a team of sort of 10 or 11, sort of 4 detractors, which is only a 6 out of 10. But it was showing that actually we weren't really hitting the nail on the head when it comes to culture. We may well have been doing all the kind of superficial things, but when it comes to kind of deep ingrained culture and engaging the team, it wasn't really working. It wasn't really having an influence. So what we did was kind
of NPS score, just for people who may not be familiar with that.
Yeah, sure. So the NPS score is called the Net Promoter Score, and what it is a survey that gets sent out. You can do it to clients, or you can do it internally, and you get rated from 1 to 10 of how likely you would be to recommend the agency to a friend or colleague. And 1 to 6 or 0 to 6 is a detractor, which is seen as someone that could easily be influenced to move away, whether that's a team member or a client. 7s and 8s are passive, so people that aren't overly happy, aren't disengaged, are kind of that middle ground. And then 9s and 10s are regarded as promoters, so they actively promote the brand, they're actively engaged in what they're doing. And what we found was that despite all the stuff we were doing as a company, we still had people floating around the 6 mark. So even though a 6 out of 10 doesn't initially sound too bad, it was dragging down the overall score of the Net Promoter Score, and just showed us that we were still missing something in culture. So what we
tennis tables weren't cutting.
Yeah. No, the tennis table, and the beer fridge. Yeah, wasn't cutting it, unfortunately.
Okay, so you
did, yeah. Oh, go on. So basically, what we did was we came up with a manifesto. We looked at exactly what we're doing. We wanted to kind of come up with a system where we change the big business rules. And what we've done over the last few years, or the last 18 months or so, is challenge traditional business structure and the way that businesses run. So your traditional 9 to 5s, you come in at 9, you finish at 5, you have this amount of holiday, you have this amount of paid sickness, you get given a manager, you don't have any choice in what you're doing. We looked at all of that and thought, why is it that a lot of companies operate in this way? Why can't we challenge this system, challenge the way that people do things, and create an environment where actually everyone has control of what they do and is therefore responsible for what they're doing, just has real control over everything they're doing, and actually engage the team in the company's vision and purpose, and give everyone a voice and that real responsibility over their work, their time, and everything they do at Reddico.
Right. And because what's interesting as well about your story is you've led this, but not, and I know what you're trying to do here is not have a top per se, but not from the top, right? So you weren't one of the founders, you were employee number 4 or 5, did you say?
Yeah.
And so how did that conversation get? Did they say, just go for it, Lou? Did you have to overcome some resistance there, or how did that dynamic work?
So my background's quite interesting, because I initially joined the company as a content writer. So I've got a background in journalism and content writing. And so I joined as like a head of content type role, and built a team out of content writers, a content marketing team, and then started to shift over towards more of an operations role. So one of my strengths is around strategy and ideation and coming up with ideas and implementing things and getting results. And I suppose the founders sort of, well, Nick, Luke and Craig started to understand actually that was a position that fitted me better than in a content team. I was better placed in an operations role. And so at the time when the manifesto was being produced and the framework of what we wanted to do was being created, they just came up to me and said, right, we want you to do this. And at first I had to try and understand it, because some of the stuff we do and have done, people look at it from first glance and go, oh, that will never work. Like, that's never going to work. You cannot do that. And I was exactly the same at one point. So I think back to sort of 18 months ago when I first looked at the manifesto, and I sat there thinking, I don't know how people are going to have sort of a self-regulated, unlimited type holiday, how that's going to operate. How are people going to be able to choose their own managers? How are people going to be trusted to have as much sick as they can take throughout the year and get fully paid for it? I was on that board line where I didn't really understand how we could implement that into a company and it not fall apart. But I took it as a challenge. I love challenges. I love the idea of being able to just throw myself into something and really go at it. And eventually I've become a real advocate. So I've gone from being a non-believer to just an advocate of actually giving the team ultimate control.
And how was the manifesto written?
Yes, the manifesto essentially was a sort of 20-page document, taken on inspiration from things such as Maverick and Henry's Happy Manifesto, the Great Game of Business, all those kind of real business books where people challenge the system and challenge the way that things are done, and just taken from a place where this is what we're doing now. This is how we want to create the rules. We want to operate on a place where self-regulated teams work best, where people feel good about themselves and they're more engaged and they're working best at those kind of environments. And just taking all of our experiences from the past and what was going wrong currently in terms of culture, turning it on its head and trying to work out how we could eliminate all those problems. So how we could eliminate a chain of command where it's, can I take this day off, or can I work from home, or can I work these hours? Whereas in a traditional business, you would go to your line manager and say, can I take tomorrow off, or can I work from home? And one manager might say yes, and then one might say no. And so what you end up getting is real inconsistencies across the company. And it was one of the things as well we started to find is team members would say, well, why is it fair that this person can have the day off? Or why can this person work from home or start later and not have any repercussions, but I can't? So it got to a point where it was, right, let's just open it up, let everyone have control of what they're doing, and remove all the kind of barriers and the blockages that are creating a healthy, engaged culture, and just go from there and see what happens.
But was it a crowdsourced manifesto, or did the founders make a start with it? I'm just interested into how that came into being.
Yeah, so it was very much the founders, I suppose, really kind of started to compile that document with help and support from the team around them. So asking the team what they wanted to get from it, why they weren't engaged, looking at those NPS scores and seeing what was the real issues around scoring a 9 or a 10 as opposed to a 6 or a 7. So how could we really engage that team and create a better atmosphere for the team to work? So looking obviously at the kind of the books that I've said, just general research and speaking to people, talking to people such as Henry face to face and on the calls and stuff, and really just drawing inspiration from all avenues.
Yeah, that's interesting, because Henry Stewart's a previous guest on the podcast. So you got him actively involved, right, on calls and so on to shape.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. He was definitely an influence. Obviously, the Happy Manifesto book, just speaking to him about how things have worked. I still talk to him quite regularly as well, because they're still, I suppose, pioneers in the whole choosing your own manager type coach role. And I still kind of seek information from him about how it's working, how we could have implemented it when we did do it, all that kind of stuff. So it was, a lot of people have had a bit of inspiration and insight into kind of help to collate that manifesto, or that original manifesto, because it's changed and it's evolved since. Obviously, in the very first place, it was a plan, it was a proposal. This is the vision, this is what we want to do. But now we've done it. So that manifesto is kind of, it's redundant now. So now we need to rewrite it to be like, this is how Reddico works. Because initially it was, right, we want the team to set their own goals, but we didn't know how we were going to do that yet. So we had to find the right goal setting system to be able to do that would work in the company. So everything was very much like, this is what we want to do, but we're not really sure yet how we're going to do it. And I suppose my role then was to take the ideas and implement it, find the right solution, find the right way of doing it, and the right way to create that engaged team.
Wow. And what was the of all the things you tried to implement then, what was the toughest one, would you say?
Funny enough, probably the whole choosing your own manager type coach role. When I first started rolling out the manifesto, I put it all into priority order. So I tried to work out what would be the easiest thing to roll out, what we could do first. Because the last thing you want is to announce to the team you're going to make all these amazing changes, you're going to change the company, and then they don't see anything for 9-12 months. Because all that does, it starts to demotivate people. You lose all the kind of momentum that you've built up from the initial excitement of this is what we're going to do. So I wanted to make sure that we were implementing things sort of regularly, like constantly changing things, tweaking things, adding new sort of policies into what we were doing at Reddico. And one of the hardest things for me to get my head around was actually choosing your own manager. So we removed managers completely. And so it was choosing someone as a coach, I suppose. So obviously before we were operating in a very sort of hierarchical type business system. So you'd have a content manager or a PPC manager or an SEO manager, you'd have people under them. But what we wanted to do was allow people to, choose our managers, because apparently 49% of people would take a pay cut. Sorry, let me get the stat right. So 49% of people would rather take a pay cut to have a different manager than their current one, which just shows that we're giving the whole of the country bad managers. We're forcing really bad managers on people. And that was something we didn't want to do. We didn't want someone just to be given a manager who were then unhappy with and would consequently leave the company because of poor or bad management, because it wasn't clicking. So we wanted to completely wipe managers off of it. We implemented the coach system whereby you choose your own coach. So we now have department leads and coaches. So a department lead is someone who is responsible for growing a department. So they are the best in sort of strategy, goal setting. They're I suppose, typically your role type manager who would be leading a department, making sure that the work standards were good. But they wouldn't be involved anymore in sort of the personal aspects of things like a manager would be. So now people choose their own coach who is there to support them, to help find them training opportunities, to empower them, to motivate them, to really get the most out of them and find their strengths and how that person can continue to improve. And you choose your own coach. So there were a group of coaches a group of people who put themselves forward for a coach, and then you pretty much just pick which coach you think would work best with you, and everyone's kind of find the person that actually has clicked with them. So removing that manager system completely and just having someone that you can go to find that support and help and motivation that you need to continue doing a great job, whilst that department lead is just there literally just to grow that department and make sure that that department keeps moving forward in the right place.
Okay. This sounds fascinating. So you're in one of those sort of manager-esque roles, right? You said you're head of operations.
Yeah.
So you're presumably so what are you responsible for growing?
So I'm not a coach at all. So I didn't put myself forwards. So basically, at the moment, I'm only effectively the department lead of one person who also works in the operations side. My responsibility is to look after the whole company from a very kind of people operations, work operations type role, sitting under the managing director. So obviously I have an influence on most of the company and how the processes work and how things are working and how the company is moving forward. But I've taken myself away from that position where I'm actually someone that people go to for support and help and mentorship, because at the time I didn't feel I didn't have the time to kind of offer people that opportunity. So I wanted people to have someone that they could go to when they wanted to. And the whole idea of the coaching is actually twisting it around, and rather than forcing people to have catch-ups, you only have a catch-up and talk to your coach when you want to. So you end up choosing when it is that time is needed for you to find that support from your coach. Right. So while I sort of do have, I suppose, fingers in all the pies to make sure the company is progressing well, I don't deal with people on a personal type supporting role anymore.
So what happens then if you're in a position where you want to change something in operations, and you feel that an individual or a few individuals, their behaviors, their performance, whatever it might be, some aspect of how it is that they're operating is holding you back? How does that conversation work? Because of course in the traditional mode, you would be their manager and you would go to them and you'd have a conversation and you'd say, pull your socks up, sunshine, we need X or Y to happen. That's off the table, right? As I understand it. So what are the mechanisms you have for getting what you want to happen?
Well, again, suppose it's all in the belief system. So we believe that everyone is coming to work and doing the best they can and working to the best sense they can, because the whole idea was about creating a more engaged team. So fortunately, that scenario hasn't quite presented itself yet. But I suppose if it did, it would just be a case of more people working together to resolve a situation. So that person's coach, so say there was someone who wasn't performing or was performing poorly or needed an extra sort of kick to get going, it's that coach's responsibility to really find out what the issue is, whether it's that they're not enjoying their work, whether it's that they need more training or more support from the leadership team around them or from themselves or from their department lead and the team, and really kind of understanding what that problem is, and maybe even talking to me about those situations as well. So we try to operate it so that anyone can talk to anyone. So even though you do have a coach in place, you do have a department lead, we still want to keep it so that the communication can flow throughout the company, so everyone is able to talk to anyone. If you want to talk to the MD, you can talk to the MD. There isn't sort of closed doors or anything like that. So at the moment, we've only sort of 21 people. It's still in a place where anyone can talk to anyone. Those kind of problems can be resolved quite quickly, I suppose, and we can get to the bottom of what it is that's holding that person back and why that person's not performing.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, does that make sense? So it sounds like a key relationship there is with that individual and the coach, and you might have a conversation with them, but you might
absolutely
others involved around the issue, as opposed to that sort of one-on-one manager to.
Absolutely, it's just to remove that whole blockage of someone being directly responsible, and normally someone that you haven't chosen to be responsible for you, which is what the problem is. Because if you think back to a typical example, say you've got someone who is a really good salesperson, and every single month they smash their targets, they perform well, they go over and above, they're the best salesperson in that team. The sales manager leaves, and the chances are that best salesperson will go for the job and could well land the promotion. They could become the sales manager. And great, they're really good at sales, so that's all they need, right? Just to be good at sales, just to be the best salesperson. But actually what they've got now is 9-10 people under them who are looking to that person for support and motivation. And that person might not be the best person to actually give that person what they need to continue growing that team and making other people better salespeople. Just because they're good doesn't mean that they can make everyone else as great as them. And that's what we wanted to do. We wanted to cut those boundaries and make sure that you could choose someone who was right for you.
Right. And actually, I read some research somewhere that suggested it was actually a negative correlation. Often the best performers, and I think it's sales was the example, actually are the least effective managers and coaches.
Yeah, absolutely. But probably because they're people that are great at what they do are so kind of, can't think of the word, but their full focus and concentration is being great at their job and being the best as they can be, rather than having that full view of what's going on around them and making sure the rest of the team can catch up and become just as great. So it does make sense.
Right. And so how does the relationship with your coach work? I mean, how often are you meeting them? Yeah, what does that look like?
Yeah, so the coaching role, I suppose, is very much up to the individual to choose how that works. So, for instance, my coach actually is the MD, so Nick Reddin is my coach, and I schedule meetings as and when I see fit, sort of on whether it's a weekly, whether it's a monthly basis. Outside of that, the only minimum that you have to do is a quarterly appraisal. So obviously in a traditional business, you would probably have an annual appraisal where at the same time, people would talk about salary increases, and it would just be this is what you've done well, this is what you've done badly type situation. But we wanted again to scrap that annual appraisal, bring in quarterly ones that are done with a coach rather than a department lead, and make it a real positive experience. So talking about the strengths, what you're enjoying about the role, what you want to do next, sort of some great work that you've done over the last quarter, sort of those key skills that you want to grow, what training do you want to do next? So what feedback from your 360 reviews surprised you, and what you're going to work towards based on those 360 reviews. So to make it a real positive experience, because a lot of people go into annual reviews dreading them, because it's a chance to sit down with that manager who they might not necessarily get along with and just be told what they've got to do next or how well they've done. We wanted to create that experience where actually it's a real positive thing. You go in there looking forward to it and just kind of get the most out of it as possible. So for me, I just pick general catch-ups on a sort of bi-weekly, maybe every 3 weeks, just to kind of talk over things, talk about what's going to happen next. And then I'll just have that quarterly appraisal just to kind of clock in and make sure that we're really focusing on the positives and the strengths and what I'm going to do next and where I'm going to take the business next from the operational side.
Right. And how does the money work then? So do you have a bonus system? Do you have raises? And how does that all work?
Well, funny enough, we're actually in the middle of implementing a profit share system. So before that, we've not had any kind of like bonus type system. What we do have is an annual retreat. So we've just come back from Oslo. So every year, based on performance and normally client NPS score, if we hit the targets, we all get to go away for like a long weekend. So in the past, we've been to Budapest, Barcelona. Last year, we went skiing in Austria, and on Monday we came back from Oslo. So we went from Friday to Monday, which was a great weekend with the whole team. So that I suppose is the bonus system at the moment. But we're keeping that and also moving to profit share as well. So now we've got in place. I suppose typically, if we go back in the past, what happened was the founders and sort of the original people were doing a lot of the work. So it didn't feel right at that time to offer kind of profit share systems when actually there's only sort of the revenue's only coming from 2 or 3 people. So because these people are kind of staying up till sort of 12, 1 in the morning, trying to start a company, taking on the big clients, getting things through the door. But now we've got to a place where that revenue is more evenly split. We've got that more engaged team. Everyone's kind of acting in the best interest of the company. We can start looking at ways that we can start distributing that wealth, I suppose. And so that's where the profit share comes in. So we're still in the process of ironing all the little final details out. And hopefully over the next quarter or so, it should be something that can roll out over a quarterly or annual basis.
Okay. And do you still expect there to be an individual element of that, or will it be more John Lewis style that's a UK retailer where they just have 1% bonus or not, depending on their performance for the whole company, and it's a percentage of their salary? Is it something like that, or is it something else?
I want to do it. So I believe that it's going to be a case whereby everyone gets exactly the same. So whatever's in the pot to be split as a salary, everyone gets an equal proportion of that. Because I also believe that you're paid a salary for the job you do, and the bonus is an equal kind of contribution from the whole team. So I don't think that people should be taking a bigger share of that pot when everyone works equally hard. Yeah.
Okay.
So it'll be a shared pot. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That's interesting. And there'll be no individual bonus, according to your own performance, that you won't have that.
There could be ad hoc bonuses. So for instance, if someone did do, I don't know, they performed completely over and above, they brought in sort of a huge client, they spoke at an event that raised real awareness for Reddico, they built a new software tool that brought in X amount of money, there could be ad hoc bonus type things for that.
Cool. Yeah.
Just a profit share one would be one that we know how that would work.
Yeah. Interesting. So we've talked money, we've talked the managerless office and pick your own coach. Yeah. Anything else? Any salient aspects of the culture that you've implemented so far that you'd like to share?
Yeah. So the biggest one I think for me is the self-regulated leave. So the ability to kind of cut back on saying that people can only have 20 days annual leave every year, and giving people effectively, we don't like to call it, but unlimited holiday. So you can take as much holiday as you want. You also have the opportunity to work from home whenever you want. You can choose your own hours. So if you want to, you can work from 12 till 8. You can work from 8 till 4. You can work at night if you want to. Whatever it is, you have that real responsibility to manage your own time as and when you see fit. So all of those 3 things kind of work together because, again, we're believing that everyone's doing the best job they can and knows themselves better than anyone else. So they know when best they work. So what surprises me is a lot of companies still operate on an 8 till 4:30 or a 9 till 5 type system and force condition everyone to work those hours when actually, I don't know, John Smith might work best in the afternoon or in the evening, or he might be like a night owl. So his best time is cracking on at sort of 6, 7 o'clock at night rather than at 8 in the morning. So we looked at that and just thought, why does everyone condition people to work these set hours? Why do we have this kind of rule around a 9 to 5 when, everyone could be regulating themselves and know themselves best? So we implemented sort of self-regulated annual leave. So you can take as much leave as you want. There is no real rule around that. So I think there's a few guidelines around clients and making sure that communication with clients is maintained and everyone knows what's going on from a team side. But you have real control over what you do and how you operate from that side of things.
I know on the unlimited leave thing, there's been some research that suggested that people ended up taking less leave because there was this competition amongst peers to actually have as little leave as possible. And so when you made it unlimited, people actually ended up taking less leave, which obviously defeated the purpose to some extent. What pattern has emerged for you, or is it a bit too early?
Yeah. So it's not the first time I've heard that. a lot of people have said a question that, and I kind of use the same argument each time, is that why would people not take the most of the holiday given to them? And normally it's because they would be unsure they could take it. They would still feel like it's something that isn't really there. If they take it, they're still going to be judged. There could be consequences for them taking it. So it's the mind frame of the individual, which then becomes the business's responsibility to change that mind frame and actually lead from example and show people they can take annual leave. And it's not a competition. It's not a game. You're not going to be punished, or there's not going to be consequences for taking more annual leave. The whole idea is, again, you know yourself better than anyone. You know when you need a break. You know that if you've worked really hard on a project, might need to take extra time off. If you want to see your family, take the time to see your family. Maintain that work-life balance. I think people would only not want to take that time because they're still feeling pressured with work and the responsibilities that just I suppose, what other people would view of them and how they're using it. So as long as we communicate from the top, actually, it's absolutely fine for people to take holiday. I mean, so far this year, I've taken loads of annual leave. So I think it's just making sure that
people might be interested.
Yeah, so I think so far I've already had I've booked about 25 days off from so far between now and June. So that's already more than I would have had last year. So it could well be 50 by the end of the year if that goes up. So
happy days.
Quite absolutely, yeah. So I'm just sitting at home twiddling my thumbs most of the time. But it's good. It's just a way of making sure that people feel trusted. They feel that they can do what they need to do to maintain that work-life balance. And I know a lot of people now are implementing things like 4-day weeks, which is a great thing to do. Obviously, it's great that people are recognizing that people can be just as efficient in fewer days. But I always feel that with the 4-day week, what's happening is you're going from conditioning someone to a 9 to 5, 5-day week to conditioning them to 4 days a week. So there's still some kind of rules and structure and guidelines in place. Whereas if you give people the freedom to actually choose when the time is they want off, it just gives them that more flexibility to manage their life better. So rather than having Monday or Friday off, why can't they take Tuesday off? Why can't they take Wednesday off? Why can't they have 2 days off in a row? Why is there still those kind of rules and guidelines? And the reason there is because you don't trust the team. So the first thing you have to do is trust your team to be doing the best they can do to basically drive the business forward and to make sure that their work is always the best it can be. And as long as you trust people to do that, there's no reason why you should be afraid of implementing that.
Mm. Okay, another common question I think I can imagine from skeptics here would want, how do you fire people?
Okay, yep. So actually, we've implemented a very different system. So one of our concepts is to let people leave well. So we've already had it in the past as well. So we got to a point where there was someone in the team who probably wasn't in the right role for them. So they weren't really as engaged as everyone else. They weren't really right in the role they were doing, and there wasn't really another role we could open up for them to do. They were a great team member. They enjoyed sort of being part of the Reddico culture and going on nights out and things like that and getting involved in the team. But from a work side, they just weren't as engaged, and there wasn't really another role at the time that we could open up for them. So what we've done as part of the manifesto and to let people leave well is to just sit down with whoever that person may be, talk to them about the problems, and what you'll find is mutually there'll be an understanding that this isn't actually going where it should be. And it's not a case of, right, okay, you're out the door. So we sit down, that person sits down with our recruiters. So obviously we recruit for new roles anyway. So they sit down with the recruiters, they help them to sort out their CV. They start talking to them about what exactly is it they want, what they're more passionate about, what they want to do next in their career. And we give a large window to help that person move on and to find the right next job. And the person in question found a new role. So it was over a 3-month period. I believe it started in sort of early last year. They sat down with our recruiters, they sorted out their CV, got interview techniques, went for a range of different interviews with careers that they wanted to do, and eventually landed a job and left on good terms. And that's how he wants to see it. So if there is a problem that comes up, again, say someone is taking the mick out of the generous policies that we do offer, they're only doing it because they're not engaged in their work. They're only doing it because they're not actually enjoying their time with the company. They want to, I don't know, whatever it is they're doing, they're not engaged in their work. So anyone can see that. We'll be able to spot things early. The team around them can raise up flags, whether it's in 360 reviews, however it's done. And you can then start having conversations of, is this the right role for you? If it is the right role for you, what can we do to support you more to help you get the most out, whether it's training, career progression, like where does that career progression lead to? Is there a role we can open up? And if it's not Reddico, if that's not the right place for you, we will help you find a new role that is, and is your preferred destination.
Yeah, and that's very consistent with what Henry Stewart said when he came on the podcast from Happy Limited, and Nikki Gattenby when she talked about the cultural propeller net. That seems to be a commonality in these cultures, perhaps, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Because we just want to create a culture where everyone feels free to be themselves. We don't want people to be hiding or pretending to be anything other than what they are. So if they're unhappy, we want to know they're unhappy. We want to be able to talk to people and understand that. So we don't want things to be locked up and hidden. So people come to work with a different face on. So we can then spot things and make sure that there's a nice smooth transition, both for the team, for us, and for the individual as well.
Right. And where are your NPS scores now? If what did you say you were at the start when there were 10 of you?
Yeah, so when there were sort of 10 of us, there were 3 or 4 detractors. So we would have been down around sort of the 40 mark, I suppose, and which was a good, I think it is, in the scale. So I think it goes from -100 to +100 is the range. Anything under 0 is poor or below expectations. I think something like 0 to 50 is good, 50 to 70 is excellent, and 70 to 100 is world class. So from an internal side, the internal NPS, we've gone from sort of 40 up to 94, so world class. So I think I was talking to Henry actually the other day, and he said that's the best score he's ever seen. And that was 15, because obviously I don't do it and the directors don't do it either. So that was 15 promoters and 1 passive.
Why don't you do
it? Well, I don't do it because I don't want to twist the results, because I know that I'm really happy where I am. And I use the NPS as a way to monitor basically unhappiness, to make sure that everyone's getting what they need to out of the company and feel supported. And as the results come in, I see kind of how it's looking anyway. So it just feels, I don't know, it feels like I would twist it potentially by doing it myself. And the same as directors, obviously, as founders and directors, they would be obviously very passionate about what they do, passionate about the company. So I want to make sure that actually we're getting a good reflection from what everyone else feels. And so, yeah, so that scores up to sort of 94, which is obviously really good. And from a client side as well, we've hit world class. So when we first started the Manifesto, we were down in excellence. So obviously we were providing a good service. We were sort of 50, 59, 60, 64 area. And the latest NPS has come around 80. So again, that's gone up to world class as well. So it shows that actually, despite all the upheaval, despite all the changes that we've made from the Manifesto, and back to the original day when I thought this is never going to work, this is going to blow up. It's just showing that nothing has actually blown up and everything has succeeded. It's helped us just to become a more engaged team that just love what they do, and it's shown from a client side and from an internal sort of happiness side as well.
Wow, that's some achievement. You almost feel like, how much further can we go if you're up there with the internal?
I know. Well,
what is
100.
The gap? What do you sense?
Sorry, what was that? I missed that.
Yeah, so what do you sense would have you get to 100 then? What are the areas you feel like you've got to work on?
Yeah, well, I suppose at the moment it's 1 passive and 15 promoters. So it's going to literally, we just got to turn that 8 into a 9 and we're there. So I don't know what's next. I suppose I think one of the big things, we entered the Great Place to Work this year. So I think the survey went round in December time. So you get the results back and we've got some good results. And I think one of the only areas that did come back on was around sort of financial side of things. And so that's where that kind of profit share does come into it. So hopefully it will be that profit share type system where people feel that they are, now that everyone is really engaged and driving the company forward, and we're seeing real success from all areas of the company, not just client, but internally, and what we're doing to promote the culture. What we're doing is to actually start using that financial success to reward the team and making sure that everyone feels an equal part of Reddico and what we're doing. So I suppose that is the next step, really. Sort the financials out and just continue to refine on everything we're doing as well, because nothing's perfect. Obviously, we're still in the early stages of all of this. It's only been going for sort of 9 to 12 months now. So there's always going to be small tweaks and changes to things. We constantly want to get feedback from the team. We sit down with the whole team and do big sessions on, right, what's going really well, which bits can we still improve on? Let's get some ideas about how we can continue to change things. And I think we've got to a place now where everyone genuinely loves what they're doing and loves coming to work. And it's just making sure that as the company grows, we continue to hold that sort of passion amongst the team and the real engagement, because it's all right when it's 21, but what about when it's 50? So it's making sure that as we grow, everyone still kind of believes in what they're doing and believes in that culture and can stay as engaged as possible.
Right. So there may be some people listening to this who say, "Oh, this is all very well, these creative types, down on the south coast or whatever, there's only 20 of them. How hard can it be? But I'm in this huge corporate and I've got an arsehole for a boss, and how is any of this going to work in my bubble?" What's your response to people who are in a very different context to the one you're in?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's not going to work for every business. So public sectors, for instance, you're never going to be able to implement all the stuff that we've done in like the NHS or that kind of stuff. But if you're looking at a big corporate business with the hundreds or the thousands, again, you've got to start small. So even when we started, I couldn't have just taken the whole manifesto and all the changes we wanted to make and roll it out in a month. Because again, it wouldn't have worked. It would have been too much. There would have been just chaos around the office. Everyone would have known what was going on, where people were, if they were working from home, if they're working at home, working from home, working in the office, what hours they were working, if they're on leave, like who's my manager, who's my coach, who's my department lead, all that kind of stuff. So we had to take it slowly. And for someone watching this, either as an owner or a department manager or a team player, you've just got to take things slowly. So understand what it is at the moment that's wrong with that company, wrong with that organization, and work out what it is you need to do to twist it upside down. What is it that's holding people back? What is it that is kind of the core problem and the core issues? Is it that there are cliques in the organization? Is it that you've got managers who like to manage which is what we didn't want to have. Whatever it is that problem is, in whether it's the framework of the business, understand what that is, understand what the dream scenario would be, and then take it slowly. So literally prioritize it into what can have small little steps to make a sort of the bigger picture at the end of it. And yeah, we're very privileged to have a smaller team. And the challenge is, as we grow, as I said, to make sure that it continues to work and we don't lose that sense of culture. But as long as you're taking those baby steps and you're making one step at a time and everyone is on board and everyone really wants to actually be behind driving the change, I don't believe there's any reason why that couldn't happen. Yeah. Change comes from the top. So unless you've got the people, the MDs or the board of directors, whoever it is, unless you've got their backing and their support, it's going to be a real hard game to try and push that.
Yeah, and that is very consistent with what you read about a lot of these cutting edge, for want of a better word, cultures, is that for it to really gain traction, it's got to be from the top. So I guess at that point, people have got a choice, right? If they're not getting the buy-in at the top, is it a battle worth fighting?
Yeah, absolutely. We spend so much of our time at work. So if you're not enjoying where you are, then why be there? There are so many other opportunities to find something that you will enjoy. And if you're in a position where you can make change, then make that change where everyone will enjoy coming to work, because you'll get so much more from the team by having an engaged workforce. It's crazy really how much things can change.
Okay, final question I like to ask a lot of my guests. For you, Luke, what does it mean to be human?
Yeah, it's a great question. And for me, it's all around to be human is around having freedom and responsibility. So to be able to choose and dictate exactly how you live your life. So making sure that you have that real work-life balance where you enjoy what you're doing on a day-to-day basis, whether it's being at home with the family, whether it's going into work with your colleagues, and having that freedom and responsibility to actually say, this is what I want to do. This is how I'm going to do it. And I'm going to make sure that I live my best life by doing it as I want.
Beautiful. Okay. Well, thank you so much. So for people who want to learn more, you've got a whole series of blog posts, right, on the revolution that you've led at Reddico.
Absolutely.
And the URL for that is?
So the website is reddico.co.uk, and I believe it's something like /culture, and you'll find a range of blog posts on there. I think we're up to, we're into sort of I think around 20 odd or so. But basically it started from the beginning. It gives the manifesto, all the ideas, the manifesto and where we wanted to go, and just shows those small steps that we've done throughout the last sort of 9-12 months and to achieve what we've done now.
Fantastic. Okay. Well, just remains for me to thank you for your time.
No, thank you, Richard.
It's been a fascinating conversation. And I love these conversations where people talk about these ideas in real world scenarios in successful businesses. It's just proof that we can orientate ourselves differently in business and take on different approaches. And not only do they work more effectively than some of the traditional ones.
Absolutely. It's all about mindset. As I've said a couple of times now, but that first kind of ground zero day when it was, right, you've got to do this, Luke. And I just did not believe at the time that I could do this or it could work. And so whoever's watching this now will probably have that same mindset. And you've just got to believe that actually change can happen. It can make a difference.
Awesome. All right. Thank you so much for your time. Have a great
Thank you, Richard.
day.
Good to speak to you.
Thanks, Luke.
Bye.
Cheers. Bye-bye.